Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead, formerly Defend and Publish, and welcome to episode 110, Dropping Everything for a Revise and Resubmit. One of the topics that I get a lot from clients that come to us at Defend and Publish is how to manage the disruption that getting a notice back from a journal or a publisher about a book. What do you do when somebody says, okay, we definitely want your content, we want your article, we want your book chapter, whatever it is, and you get a revise and resubmit? Sometimes a deadline accompanies this where, you have 6 weeks to do it, you have a month. Sometimes you'll get an acceptance with some revisions and there'll be maybe a harder deadline of a few weeks. But in any event, nobody really talks about how to manage the disruption of that coming in when you already are working on other things. You've already kind of set up your writing. So I know in previous podcasts, and I will link to those in the show notes, I've talked a little bit about setting up a semester for writing. Well, that doesn't account for getting the news in your email that you need to do a revise and resubmit, which is, usually happy news. You would like to get one of those versus an outright rejection. And so I'm in that position right now, and I thought I would just say something about how I'm managing that with the other writing projects I have going this semester. So first of all, I'm a big believer in whatever it is that you have to do, trying to get rid of that project, that revise and resubmit within 2 to 3 weeks. I like to have a 2-week deadline because I know then it's not that you're losing time for writing, because of course this publication might be closer to getting published than any other publications you're doing. So it's not a loss, but it is a loss in the sense that you're plugging along, you're working on some projects during the semester, and then all of a sudden you have this interruption. It's a scholarly writing interruption. So it's something that you want to take care of if you want to get something published. And so I just wanted to say something quickly about how I handled that. So this happened to me about a week and a half ago, where I got a notice that I needed to resubmit a manuscript and have basically a third reader break a tie. So that's happened to me once or twice before. It's not a, necessarily a big deal, but it is something that I have to make some revisions to the manuscript to be able to let a third reader take a look at it that responds to the second reader's criticisms. So I want to make sure that I just say something about how I'm doing that. So how I decided to handle that was, first of all, obviously, I need to see what it is I need to do. So you always want to take a look at the revise and resubmit letter and make a plan. I know that I talked about this a long time ago about how I used Asana to kind of sort through what it was that reviewers want to do. And so in this case, and I'm going to share a screen, what I ended up doing was making another Asana project. So I have all my little projects listed there. I made one just for the revision specifically. So it's not going in the same place where my initial work was going. For me, I consider revise and resubmits new projects because they have new things going on with them. Maybe I don't need to revisit certain parts of a manuscript, but for the parts I do need to revisit, I have totally different things I need to do from the last time. So one of the things that I like to do is to have a new space to keep track of what it is I'm working on. So in my case, I made another Asana board to be able to do that. Another thing that I try to think about when I'm doing this is to think about what writing time did I already have booked for the week for other things? Obviously, those other things will have to go on the back burner, but I try to look at that writing time and see if there's any way I can get some additional writing time in as well. And for me, I was able to do that by moving some meetings that happened in the 2-week period for the revision. So in that case, it was beneficial for me to go ahead and basically I have 2 hours that were going to be spent in meetings, but I could do those meetings anytime. I moved those back after this 2-week period that I'm trying to knock out this revision. So that was another thing that was really helpful. A third thing that has been really helpful for me is not only making a list of the tasks I need to do, talking with people about how to approach those revisions if I needed to do that. But another thing that I like to do is to think about, as I'm doing the revision, what are the biggest pieces of concern here that I need to address? So those are usually in the feedback given in the contents, but I also try to think about how to make sure that I address those revisions in kind of a clear and a clean manner. And in the notes, one of the things I have listed as a project as part of the task of doing a revise and resubmit is submitting that cover letter that explains the revisions that were completed. So as I go about doing that revision, I also make notes on, okay, this is done on page 41. This is where I extended that definition. This is where I cleaned up the language about XYZ. So as I'm doing that revision, I also keep a running list of where those things are happening for the revision letter. And that's been especially helpful. But then the other thing that I do is I look at the projects that I was supposed to be doing during this 2 weeks that I'm not doing. So one of those things for me is our wonderful Defend, Publish, and Lead website. I have some content I still need to finish writing. While I'm sad that I'm not going to be able to do that in these 2 weeks, nothing's going to happen if I'm 2 weeks later on that. Of course, I want to get that out to all of you, but if it happens 2 weeks later, that's okay. However, I have another project where it is going to matter. I have some collaborative work that I'm doing with someone that we have kind of a tight deadline to do this article that we're working on together. And so in that case, one of the things that I did was I looked at how we were working through parts that we were writing together. And I talked with my co-author a little bit about switching things around. So the co-author could do a little bit of writing more while I was working on this revision for this other project. And then I could pick up a heavier load after 2 weeks. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I did was I did have one day where I was supposed to do something else that, would have been probably fun and helpful. So a little get together with friends. I did move it because I knew there's no way I can pull off doing this revision, this other thing I owe this co-author. I can't make it all work in this 2 week period, but I'm really, for me, I'm very tightly bound to those 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks to get a revise and resubmission going. Cause I like to make sure that, the content's still fresh in my head. I don't want to make whoever is waiting for my new revision wait. And there's, of course, always the changes in editors or leadership or reviewers or that kind of thing that could shift at any moment. So, I consider revise and resubmissions time sensitive for that reason. So, it did mean that I had to make some hard sacrifices to, not that this is necessarily super hard, but it was hard. It was a little disappointing that I had to move something, but that was a way that I was able to still do some of the writing that I had to do during this 2 week period, plus do that revise and resubmit. So I don't know if those strategies are helpful for you, but at least for me, just the big things are making a new place to record the revise and resubmit as a new project, to think about it that way, to get real clear about what are the steps that have to be done, have a way of marking them off after they're finished, keeping track for your revision letter where everything is, so that way you can point the readers to where those things are. And then any work that you have to do during that same time period as the revision, see if there's any way that you can either shuffle how you do it, create some extra time by, canceling some things that maybe are non-essential. So I got rid of 2 meetings, but I also to do a little bit more on the revision, but then I got rid of some social things to make sure that I had room to do this project that I was supposed to be working on. And then for something that could wait, I just let it wait. So for the website, it can wait 2 weeks, and it will wait 2 weeks because it has to. So hopefully that's helpful for thinking through how to approach those. We'd love to hear your strategies if you want to share those on Twitter. And also, as always, we are partners with the Textbook and Academic Authors Association. And I wanted to say something again briefly about institutional memberships. So if you are an institution or a faculty developer, I know I have a lot of those listening on the podcast. These institutional memberships are out there. And if you haven't heard me talk about them before or seen these, they are really a kind of a great deal. A really popular option, which I'm showing on screen right now, is basically paying $1,000 to get a workshop for your faculty on campus, which you might pay for a facilitator anyway. And then you get faculty memberships to the Textbook and Authors Association with that workshop. It comes as part of that. There's some really great speakers in here. So you can kind of see Tara Gray, Daniel Stevens, lots of productivity folks that are in there. If you're interested in working with me, I do workshops for them as well. So you can check those out. But there's a list of people that are offering some different things. And what I like about these workshops, particularly if I was going to look to bring one of these to my campus, I really like that they're about doing things that you can do. So they're not necessarily workshops about writing ideas or about things that you should be doing as an academic writer. I like that they're extremely practical for faculty with busy schedules, heavy teaching loads, and so on. So I like that a lot. But if you want to check those out, those are located at the Textbook and Academic Authors Association. And you can check those out if you look under Join. They have institutional memberships, and it's worth taking a look. So hopefully that helped this week, and happy writing.